Welcome to From the Other Side of the Pass, the hospitality podcast brought to you by
Lucy, the lover of the people,
and Ruth, the relatable EHO. Bringing real solutions to real challenges faced by food business operators. Whether you're a startup restaurateur or managing a factory floor, our informative, relatable chat will help you to grow and develop and achieve greater success. Come on, let's dive in.
Hello, from the other side of the pass. It's just me again. I've been watching Jeremy Clarkson, Clarkson's Farm. Now, this is meant to be a 10-minute bite size. So much to say about Jeremy, but one of my funniest, I loved it. Cheerful Charlie came in when the tall Irish was making the mushrooms, and he went, well, you can just make them. Where's your HACCP? And then later on, Jeremy was like, when he sent the mushrooms off to the lab, he's like, do you have any CCPs? Now, me and my fellow EHOs, well, I got overexcited because HACCP was mentioned on Jeremy Clarkson. And I know that he keeps coming up against Cheerful Charlie and his rules. So I'm not going to do HACCP in 10 minutes, but I'm going to give you the best job of 10-minute HACCP I can. I've been training level 3 HACCP today, took all day, okay? So this is going to be a challenge. So if you want to do a thing, listen up, but only if the thing involves making food. So this is for food. I thought it would be a good idea if I gave you the definition of food, because some people do get confused. So food, legal definition, any substance or product, whether processed, partially processed or unprocessed, intended to be or reasonably expected to be ingested by humans. This includes drink, not just food. So when you've got a pub that only sells drink, you can get inspected. Okay, offering food. So food that you offer. So food shall be placed on the market if it is safe. Food is deemed to be unsafe if it is injurious to health or unfit for human consumption. You see why Lucy does the reading generally. I was going to say this is the boring bits, but honestly, I think Jeremy thinks it's all boring, and I hear it. I hear him. Food business. Any undertaking, whether for profit or not, whether public or private, carrying out any of the activities related to the stages of production or processing and distribution of food. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because of drink is food. Quite often people go, it's drink, it's not food. So why are you here? It's still food. And then I'm not selling it, I'm giving it away. It doesn't matter. For profit or not, it still legally requires to comply with the food regs. Also, it says public or private. So if you have a private members club, that food still needs to comply to the food safety regulations. Okay, so that's just me winning my arguments before you put them to me. All food businesses, I know this without reading it, all food businesses are required to have a food safety management system based on the principles of HACCP, commensurate to the size and nature of the business. So in theory, your corner shop that just sells all pre-packed food, wrapped up, made by someone else, still should have a food safety management system, basically a document, something to say, this is how we make food safe. These are our rules. Basically, it's your rules to make sure food is safe. For that type of corner shop with just packaged food, they're just going to go, we're going to wash our hands after going to the toilet. That's not much more than they need to put on there. If they've got a fridge, then they might want to put a bit more. If there's food in the fridge, we'll make sure it's cold. Okay, so HACCP, and that's what I got excited that was on Clarkson's Farm. And I'm not going to be ashamed of that fact. Okay, that's just it. Right, are you ready? HACCP. It stands for Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point. Anyone who does health and safety is just a risk assessment on food. Where could it go wrong? When I'm making this product, what could I do wrong? And what do I need to do to make sure that the food is safe? What is critical? So there might be lots of control points, but one of them or two of them might be critical. And I don't know right now how I'm going to do all of this in 10 minutes. I'm going to carry on. I've even written notes before you start. So quite often I say, so let's take Jeremy. Yeah, he's got all the money in the world. Before you start making food or dealing with your HACCP, before you have your HACCP, you should have your prerequisites in place. The good hygiene practices a business puts in place before implementing a HACCP. So good manufacturing processes. Now, to give you a list of what those are, these are the things. So these are the things you want to think about before you start making. We're going to go with, he made soup, didn't he? He made nettle soup. So before he made nettle soup, he already had a food room. So he had a good structure, good design and structure, suitable facilities with a wash and basin. Approved suppliers, well, he was getting them from his garden, wasn't he? Or his farm, his farm. Personal hygiene. Now, the mushrooms got picked up because they weren't clean enough, were they? So personal hygiene should have a procedure in place. Stock control, cleaning and disinfecting, pest management, good housekeeping, labelling and traceability, and a plan for if things go wrong. So all of those things you've got to have in place. Put simply, a food room which is easy to clean, which is in got good structure, so there's not bits falling off. Good equipment that's in good condition, well maintained. Staff that know what they're doing, they've been trained, they know how to wash their hands, what uniform they should be wearing. So all those things are in place. Then you go, right, I'm going to make nettle soup. Okay. There are 7 principles to HACCP, but the World Health Organization has got a department called Codex Alimentarius. They look after HACCP. They're really clever people. They talk words above my ability. Well, above my short-term abilities. I'd have to invest a lot of time. So there's 7 principles of HACCP, but Codex went, let's make it 12 steps, 7 principles. So there's 5 steps to carry out before you start on the 7 principles. But wait, we need to assemble a team. So you assemble the HACCP team. You need to train them. They need to be a multidisciplinary team, is the expression that we use. So let's say Jeremy was picking the nettles. Well, he was picking the nettles. He was the gopher, really, in that case. Charlie was the quality control. Lisa was the production manager. So that, if they're all on the HACCP team, that's somebody who does all of the jobs, or somebody from each section of the jobs. Really depends on the size of your business as to how big the team is and who's on the team. Then you describe your product. So they were making nettle soup. So it wouldn't have been ready to eat, I suppose. So that's important, whether it's ready to eat, because if it's ready to eat, it's high risk because it's not going to be cooked again. Well, nettle soup, I would suggest it would have cooking instructions on it. So therefore it's not ready to eat. Cook or heat before consumption, or consuming. So therefore it's not ready to eat product. Anyone could eat it, not suitable for vegetarians, my husband pointed out, because it had chicken stock in it. You then need to, so we've assembled a team, we've described the product, identify the intended use. Who's it for? Jeremy's nettle soup was for the general public, not vegetarians. If you're making food for vulnerable people, so already ill, young, old, or pregnant, then you would consider, your HACCP would have different things to consider. I'm talking quick because I want to keep you. Construct a process flow or flow diagram. So from goods in to either selling if it's a retail product, or service if it's a hospitality catering product. From the moment it comes in to the moment it goes out, you need to do a flow diagram. Hospitality people, things like, I can't say it, ceviche, the raw fish that you cook, steak tartare, carpaccio, you would need a HACCP for those, okay, as opposed to a generic food safety system for just hospitality. So once you've drawn your flow, you just walk through the process on site, make sure that your flow is accurate. Then you can conduct a hazard analysis. So there are 4 hazards you would look at. Physical hazards, so that would be, can bits of equipment fall in my product? Will there be stones from harvesting the nettles? Will there be buttons off people's uniforms? Those are the type of physical hazards. They would cause somebody to choke, break their teeth. So is there a risk of those hazards in our process? And each step, so picking the nettles, you consider the physical hazards. Chemical hazards, picking the nettles, there could be pesticides on those nettles. Probably not, because they were technically not in the farm, they're weeds. But would there be a risk of pesticides or herbicides or fertilizers on those? So what's the risk of the chemical hazards? Biological hazards, would there be any biological contamination? Has there been a risk of horse poo, cow poo, anybody's poo on those nettles? And then allergies. Were the nettles underneath a hazelnut tree? We need to look at all options. So you look at all of the hazards for each step, and then you consider the control measures. So physical, maybe once you've harvested your nettle leaves, you wash them. So all the heavy stuff, the physical contamination, would sink to the bottom. Chemicals, you would know that that area would not be subject to pesticides. So that's a control measure. Biological. Now, we could make sure we only pick the visibly clean nettles, but actually we're cooking it. So if there's biological contamination, there will be a step lower down that would deal with that. Dirty people though, people picking the nettles with dirty hands, that would be your hygiene policies, control that. And then allergens, well, don't pick the ones under the hazelnut tree. I hope this is making sense. Right, so you've looked at the hazards for each step. So let's go to cooking. You're cooking. All your physical hazards are controlled because you've got uniform policy. That's all done by your prerequisites. So there's no risk of physical. Cleaning chemicals could get in the cooking stage, but your prerequisites have given you cleaning schedules, cleaning instructions. So you've removed that risk or reduced it to a minimum. Allergies, you've got no allergies in your kitchen, so you've got rid of that risk or those hazards. Cooking though, biological hazards. If you don't cook this soup properly, you will have harmful bacteria, the pathogens living in that. So you need to cook those. So that's a critical control point. So what we've done is we've considered the hazards and the control measures. The next step or the next principle is determine a critical control point. Now there is a flow diagram that helps you. Basically, if I don't do this step, will the product not be safe? If I do not cook this nettle soup properly, then any pathogens from the cow poos in the fields will still be on that soup. So I'm going to be selling soup with cow poo residue in there. So I need to cook it and kill it so there's no E. coli left in there. Okay, so it is critical that I cook this soup to 75 degrees if that's what I decide. Once you've got your critical control points, your CCP, so you've done your hazard analysis, what could go wrong, we've decided that our critical control point is cooking. I'm really simplifying this. Each CCP has to have a critical limit. So we're going to go, we want it to boil at 75 degrees for, actually, we might cook it to 80 degrees for 5 minutes, because that will kill some of the spoilage organisms, which gives it a longer shelf life. This is all the sort of thing you'd need to think about doing your HACCP. So you know they were going, well, what shelf life are you going to put on it? Well, you can affect that by your cooking times. Also, they kept on going best before. It would be a fresh product, a high risk, well, not high risk because you're going to cook it again, but it's a fresh product, so therefore you would need a use by date. So use by is for safety, best before is for quality. If you sell food past its use-by date, it's an offence. Best before, it just doesn't taste as good as it should. But that soup should have had a use-by date. And the HACCP team decide on that use-by date, okay, or shelf life. So we've got critical limits. We're going to cook at 80 degrees for 5 minutes. That's an example. Do not copy that. Then each critical control point will need monitoring. So monitoring is taking the temperature. Corrective actions. What do you do if you take the temperature and it's not reached 80 degrees? Corrective actions, carry on cooking. Okay. So corrective actions is how do you regain control? Let's say your critical control point was to have your fridges at 5 degrees for some reason. That could be a prerequisite. But your fridges are, no, that's a bad example. If something goes wrong, what do you need to do to bring it back under control? That's your corrective actions, okay? Verification, that's, are you doing what you say you're doing? Have a look. Are you taking the temperatures? Are you, all the things you say you're doing is, verification is proving that you're doing what you're meant to be doing. And then you need documentation and record keeping. Those are the 7 principles. I feel I lost you a long time ago. If you're still with me, that was almost 16 minutes. 16 minutes on what Jeremy should have done. So you need to consider all of the hazards, what control measures you need in place, and which ones of those control measures are critical to providing safe food. Obviously, none of it's that simple, and that's why I wish I was Jeremy's environmental health consultant, but he must have somebody helping him, not me. I was hoping that will help you. I don't think if anyone out there wants to send this to Jeremy, so next time he wants to do a thing, he will know what HACCP is and a CCP. Then please do send it to him. Thank you very much if you've reached the end of this. I want to see these numbers go high, yeah? I want to see this being the most listened to podcast, because maybe Jeremy might be coming on in a minute. Maybe I should have said that at the beginning. Jeremy, if you want give me any feedback, please get in touch. Okay, well, hopefully Lucy will be back next week and we'll bring it up to a more interesting subject. Thanks for listening, and goodbye for now.
If you enjoyed this podcast, then Lucy's going to tell you what to do. Please like, follow and subscribe. You will never miss an episode and you will make us very happy, ladies. Yes, we've got plans, big plans.
Thank you.